welcome to Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. I'm Richard Dugan, your host, and I thank you so much for joining us here on the program as we come your way Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., and then Wednesdays at 9 a.m. with our special edition of Tell Me Your Story. We stream live at those times at richarddugan.com. We have podcasts at SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, Blueberry, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, many other locations. And we're also on YouTube where you can watch these interviews. And we hope that you'll subscribe. And then that way you can be notified every time a new interview is posted on any of these podcast or videocast sites. So we thank you for joining us here on the program. I will continue with all of the other preliminary information later, which means it's no longer preliminary. Postary? I don't know. Anyway, we're going to talk with a returning guest. I'm really glad to have her back again. She's been on the program a number of times. Jude Bijou is our guest. Reconstruction.com is her website. And we want to thank you so much for joining us again here on the program to talk about, I think, something that probably could best be summed up by the phrase that I've used, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm open to that. Words have power. And we need to be more mindful, more conscious of the words that we use, and maybe even in the context of the words that we use, even in our own thoughts, and how they affect our emotions and our actions.
You're stealing my thunder.
Yes, but you're going to go into more detail as to some of the processes, some of the things that you have found that help people, including yourself, to, I guess, fine-tune our intent. Is that a good way to put it?
Well, I say so that we can feel more joy, love, and peace.
I like that.
Yeah, that there are emotions and that we can create those emotions of joy, love, and peace by our thoughts, by our words, or we can also create more sadness and more anger and more fear, but that we have a choice. But it is our thoughts are really, really powerful.
Well, you have a self-improvement and personal development program. You actually have a book out as well that's available through your website. Tell us a little bit about this book on attitude.
Well, it was something because I grew up not feeling happy and knew that I should be happy, that, it wasn't meant to feel nothing. And so I went on a quest. I started with meditation. I was in my early 20s. And it's I had to find something that made sense for me because I was just not liking, just feeling so icky. And so I got really into meditation. And then my father was a psychologist. And so I had some of those genes of being a behavioral psychologist, that I had to be scientific about it. So it was a matter of combining the science and the meditation and my own experience. And what evolved through years and years I'm a marriage and family therapist. So counseling people, counseling myself, I started to get a picture of how the mind works and became into the power of our emotions. And then I learned, hey, if I'm feeling sadness and I'm not crying enough, I'm going to feel really down on myself.
It's interesting that I've heard this breakdown of the word emotion, E standing for energy, and then, of course, motion. So energy in motion. And that's really what we're talking about here. And we can choose how that energy is moved based upon where we are and our attitudes. I mean, I've seen so many and heard about so many people, Jude, whose health conditions are tied to, I mean, this now goes into more metaphysics, if you will, and symbolism, but still it's connected. And I don't know all of the connections from one part of the body's dis-ease to these attitudes, these emotions, and so forth, the stress that we're now under, the anxiety, and so forth. But it's like someone who's having really bad digestive problems. And that's tied, I don't know. I mean, I had my gallbladder removed, and I know the liver and gallbladder are tied to anger.
Right.
And before my gallbladder was removed, let's just use the example of spilling a glass of milk. I don't want to get it. After it was, oh, okay, I'll just get a thing and clean it up, no big deal. And I was actually aware of that change. Let's talk a little bit about maybe some of the physical diseases. Let's just say for example, I don't know if you've done. I would think you've probably done some of the study in these areas. Let's say headache, migraine headaches, pains, from the neck up in that regard. What would that be tied to? What is somebody holding on to? What's the baggage that they have to run through TSA with?
Well, I think that I want to go back a step before we get there. And that is because I really like it, and I totally agree. Emotions are emotions, energy in motion, right? And we feel them in our body. We feel sadness. We feel that heaviness. And we feel anger where we want to strike out and kill. And we feel fear where we're just trembling and shuddering and anxious. It's all of those feelings in our body. And what happened is when we were little kids, we just expressed them. But what happened when we got older is our parents, our school, our neighbors, our friends said, it's not cool. Don't cry, little girl. Boys aren't pretty when they cry. Girls shouldn't get angry. Don't be a scaredy cat. And so we took all that energy and we had to stuff it or compensate in some ways. We'll talk about how we compensate with our thoughts. But we had to stuff all of this energy in our body. And that goes to, there we have. Now we have headaches. What is that? That's a lot of pressure in the head, right? Mm-hmm. And that can be stress, which is fear. There's too much going on and I can't deal with it. Oh, it's in my head. Or it can be sadness. It just, for different people, it's different things. But that's when our head starts to compress, we know we're expressing those emotions that are natural. And so we got to give ourselves permission to get those emotions out in a really constructive way.
I even remember as a kid and even as a teenager and young adult, that if there was this emotional event, like let's just say somebody passed away, and you'd want to cry, but you weren't where you could do it privately. You weren't where you could do it secretly so that you didn't embarrass yourself. And then again, those are the thoughts going in the head. And so I could feel what you're talking about. And as soon as I had the opportunity to do that, to release through the tears and the sobbing, the pressure went away. It just went away.
Hallelujah.
And the same thing, let's say, with the stomach and the digestion. I know that a lot of people, it manifests in the stomach. Some people get ulcers and what have you. Or maybe the extra, acids are built up in there because they're struggling and they can't and so forth. And as soon as they let it go, they talk about it, even if it's just with a therapist, it's like that tends to dissipate until it's gone. But I think the biggest problem, though, is we'll have that experience and then we'll move on and we'll forget that we had that experience back there. And we forget that, I need to do that. It's like, no. I mean, it's like that old programming comes racing to the forefront, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's really having to be mindful and honor our emotions. They're a part of every one of us. And we have to go, all right, they're a part of me and I need to express them constructively. But we have a lot of messages that say, move on, get going. Complete this project, do this, go here. And so there's not a lot of space to go, oh, time out. I need to go and shake and shiver because I'm scared. Woo! And we weren't given that permission, or we forget to take it. I have clients all the time. We'll go over that idea that if they're scared, what does a dog do when it's scared, when it's at the vet? It's in the corner underneath your chair, shaking and shivering and shaking and shivering, because that's the natural energy. And we all know that energy. When you have to give a talk in front of 500 people, your voice quivers and your knees are knocking. It's energy. And if we just take a few minutes to just shake it out, like that's that Taylor Swift, shake it out, just shake it out. And just go into a bathroom. It's like, but we forget that it's that simple, that we can move that energy out of our body.
There's another thing that animals, and in particular when I watch my dog and our cats, and I remember, I don't know if it was reading it or hearing it, maybe on one of these programs where we had animal communicators, if you will. And they would always say that if you feel, for example, if you feel like stretching, just think about your dog. Our dog will get up and he will lean forward and push his hind legs out and he's stretching. And then he'll lean back and push his front paws out. And then he goes off about his business. And it's like there's something about that action that just makes the biggest difference in one's attitude at that moment.
Absolutely. That's a lovely example, because it's allowing the body to move to its full length and stretch all of those muscles and reset from a night's sleep or taking a nap. As a dog, is like, sitting down, and it gets up and it stretches, which is what we need to be doing. We need to follow what animals do a little bit more, because they don't have that, their thoughts that interfere. They just do what they naturally feel like they want to do at that moment.
Yeah.
There's studies that show that dogs cry, right? Like when they lose a playmate, or they're reunited with their master after a long absence, that there'll actually be some tears there, which I thought was a cool study.
We're talking with Jude Bijou. She has a book, Attitude Reconstruction. AttitudeReconstruction.com is the website. And you, folks, are listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, your host, and it's always a pleasure to have guests returning to our broadcast. Jude Bijou is one of those. You are in no way, your family is in no way connected with any of the theaters around the country that were called Bijou theaters. Is that correct?
That's correct. Or if you're of my age, there was the comic strip Nancy, and Nancy always was going to the Bijou theater. So it would often kind of go up in the little, one of the little windows of the cartoon would say Bijou. But no, I can't claim those.
Can't claim that one. Well, you can claim, of course, Attitude Reconstruction. That's the book that you've written. And I'm wondering, as we move on here, is it available yet in Audible format?
No, it's not. But you can get it in Kindle,
okay,
or paperback.
Absolutely.
As you said, from my website, AttitudeReconstruction.com.
We encourage people to go there. We'll be linked to your website, as we always are, to all of our guests' websites, so that you folks can get more information, find out more about Jude and the work that she is doing. You also have for us, as we are moving through here, you've got some suggestions on how to pinpoint, in this case, for example, as we're talking about wanting to be joyful and loving and having peace in our lives, and finding out where a person is coming from, the person's respective, shall we say, destructive thoughts, and how to basically, I don't know if we want to use the term F-disking, a computer term, or overwriting, or replacing them with thoughts and ideas and attitudes that bring greater happiness and health. Health is huge, and it's like when I watch people walking on the street, especially who are a lot of them are short little people. You know, they seem like, and my father. I mean, I'm now taller than he was, and he kind of walks around. He's got a little bit of a crook in his back, but it's not like some who look like they almost have a hump. And the first thought that goes through my mind, Jude, is, my goodness, what baggage are they still carrying around after 80 or 90 years? And I often wonder that if they could find a way to release, if that hump would just go away and they immediately pop up straight, kind of stuff. Give us,
Well,
I know that probably wouldn't happen immediately, but let's talk a little bit about what you've come up with.
yes, because they're bad habits that we repeat over and over and over. And what's really, really interesting is that when, like, that sadness is natural, hurts and losses, like you say, natural to cry. But when we don't cry enough, we turn that sadness, that heaviness onto ourselves, and we're not good enough. We're not taking responsibility for ourselves. We feel unworthy. We don't feel good. And also all of those bad thoughts that we have about ourselves, oh, nobody loves me, all of those indicate that you have stored up sadness and you need to be doing more crying. Whereas for anger, anger is, you can be angry at yourself, but anger usually is that energy goes outward onto other people. The people are, you're not on my program, and you're wrong, I'm right, you should do it my way. you know I don't get what your thing is. It's that energy is outward when we have that anger that is in our body. And like a lot of this bullying has its roots in unexpressed anger, of course. I'm feeling small, I'm feeling little, I've got sadness. And instead of crying because it's not okay, I'm going to take that and turn it into anger and make you the problem. Going to feel better about myself by putting you down. So anger thoughts have to do with other people and things.
Now,
So
it's interesting that sadness, okay, and even in the category, putting into the category fear, we're allowed to express those. Those are fairly common and acceptable expressions of emotion. Obviously, happiness and joy and all those kinds of things as well. But when it comes to anger, no, 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 no. You're not allowed to express anger, because I think more the fear on the part of the observers that the person who is angry is going to lash out and maybe hurt someone, including themselves. I find this interesting. I've had this dynamic happen before with a female where it's okay for her to get angry, but not for me because she's afraid. And certainly I can appreciate that. I can understand that. I grew up with four sisters and a mother. I had a brother, a younger brother, and my father. And I don't recall ever there being a situation where I wasn't allowed to be angry any more than they were not allowed to be angry. But now here I am, an adult, and there are some women who, if you get angry, I'm out of here. And it's like, okay, how in the world do I now I've got two blockages. Number one, I've got the anger. And number two, I've got the you can't express that anger, or at least not in front of me.
right. And I say, go back to what does a little child do when you say you can't have a cookie or it's time for you to go to bed? They'll have a temper tantrum. Exactly. They move the energy out of their body. They'll move that energy, then they'll fall asleep, they'll get distracted and start to play with something else, or they'll just come back to being normal because they've moved that energy. And so what I think we need, and what I have clients do, is I pull out an big old stack of used telephone books, which you can still find around, especially during when they put out new ones. I'll go to the recycle center and climb into those dumpsters and get me a supply so I can hand them off to people. And a flexible plastic plumbing hose,
Oh, yeah.
about 20 inches. And you find yourself someplace safe, whether it's the bathroom, the garage, whatever, and you wail on those phone books with that hose, and you do it until you're exhausted. And you catch your breath and you do it again, and you catch your breath and you do it again until that energy is all gone. But while you're doing it, you don't go, you stupid, you idiot, you. That is only make the anger a deeper rut. You move it without words, because there's no words, it's energy. Yeah. It's just energy in the body. And I got to take responsibility for my anger and move it out of my body.
So we're basically transmuting or transforming that energy.
We're dissipating it.
We're releasing it. Yes.
Releasing it.
Right.
Because you can, well, I want to just say that if you can't, I can't do that, you can always go into your car, sit behind the steering wheel, grab the steering wheel, not while you're driving, and shake it, because you're not going to pull it off of its, right, axis. You just, and you just do it until you can't do it anymore, and you'll feel silly, but you'll also feel incredibly free.
Yeah.
Because you move energy.
We're talking with Jude Bijou, and attitudereconstruction.com is her website. And you are folks watching and listening to Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, your host, along with Jude Bijou, and we're discussing this aspect which a lot of folks, Jude, are experiencing these days. Obviously, the post-COVID, it seems as though they have declared that it is no longer a pandemic. That's a wonderful thing. Don't quote me on that, folks. I think that as of this broadcast. But by the same token, we still all need to be careful, period. Whether it's COVID, whether it's the influenza. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff floating around out there, and we can't escape it, really. I mean, you can only do so much. Although I will say you can, and I want to talk to you about this, you can fortify your immune system through, am I correct, even through some of these simple bullet points or ideas that you're putting out? Because that's really where the battle is won or lost, is in the immune system. I'll give you a real quick example. I worked for 21 days straight without a day off. And finally my body said, no more. And I stayed in bed for 3 days. I didn't want to move, let alone couldn't move. I was just exhausted. Now I was working 8-hour days, no big deal, but it was still 21 straight days. The body has a way of telling us when it's time to rest. And I know sleep is a huge booster for the immune system. But also these techniques you're talking about in terms of expressing some of those emotions that have been labeled, do not express them.
Yeah.
Because they're inappropriate. And I have to tell you, I don't know about you, I get distressed sometimes when I am watching the news and you've got men specifically in politics, but other areas as well, who will express themselves to the media, and I don't know what the heck you're talking about. No problem. They don't say, and the president or the lost is cool, and but if a woman does that, must be that time of the month, or she's hysterical. It's like, wait a minute. It's like one is allowed and the other is not. Let's talk a little bit about some of the stereotypical, as well as what would you call it? Well, I guess that would be it. In a matter of speaking, the stereotypical attitudes on the part of the public and the media towards individuals who happen to be in front of the camera or microphone, who basically they're fed up with whatever the reporter or person is saying, and then goes on. I had that happen on this program once, where this woman who is a very strong feminist, and I was talking about men's fears just walking the streets and even looking at a woman and then being accused of harassment or what have you, something, or assault, and they never touched them. And she said to me, and with a lot of energy behind it, "Welcome to the club." And I thought, wow, oh, easy, you know. And maybe she had a point, but again, it's like I didn't criticize her being that way. I didn't feel necessarily personally attacked, but it gave me maybe a better understanding of where she and other women are coming from when it comes to that kind of thing. So anyway, I'll let you.
Yes, and it's ancient. It's an ancient. We've all grown up in a male-dominated society where we got to be tough. We can't show emotions because if we show emotions, we're weak. And so then the men have to stuff it. And then they don't want the women to be strong. And they don't want the women. They don't know what do you do with a crying woman? It's like freaks guys out. Oh, I think she's crying. It's like, oh, let me try to pacify her. They don't want to just sit with it. Go for it, sweetie. I know you're sad. Go ahead and cry. But they don't. Again, the messages have just been so constant for time, way back generations. And that's what all this new age is doing. Or in Iran, this women are going, I don't want to be male dominated anymore. I want to have a choice about whether I can show my hair or not. But again, it's just, those are extreme examples.
Mhm.
But it really is that men are the ones, we see that in the politics, they're the ones that are out front usually
Yeah.
in our society. And it's detrimental to that softness, to joy, love, and peace. It's more like get things done and do it my way. And those aren't connecting kind of words and actions. It's, I'm right, you're wrong. That's tough.
Yeah. Well, I am certainly very grateful that more women are getting involved in business and politics and a lot of the institutions, and also starting to hear about some of the history of the contributions that women have
Mm.
made in our society, that if they had not come along, we may not have progressed as far as we had. I mean, I think about those movies as far as the space program, you know, and
Yeah.
the story of the women who were running the equations to get the Apollo program moving. I mean, that was just I didn't know about that. And it's like, well, it's about time. And why is this taking so long for us to hear about these contributions? This is ridiculous. My sisters, oh my goodness, they've accomplished so much in their lives. And I am so proud of them and grateful that they are in my life.
But think about the movie theater, the movie business. It's been so male dominated. I mean, it's starting to shift. But the amount of directors, the amount of actors are paying, the male actors are paid more, and they're the ones that make the decisions about what kind of films that we're going to be making. That it's just been so dominated by the male energy and the male thinking that it takes a long time to make those shifts. But we're working it. We're
And
working.
yeah, we're making, we collectively are making headway to give
Exactly.
everybody,
Yeah.
regardless of their gender, an opportunity, and, I've often thought, gee, when someone's applying for a job, maybe there shouldn't be a name on the resume, maybe just a number. All right. And then whoever's in HR, whoever's doing the hiring, bases their hiring based upon what they're reading there. And I'm going to think, yeah, I know you still have to do the interview, but there's got to be a way in a manner of speaking, doing it blindly, so as you're not influenced by. And I have to say that as an operations manager over the years, when I have been in the position of hiring, I'd rather hire women
Yeah.
because they get what we're doing more than a lot of the guys. A lot of the guys are into their ego and like, oh, we're working for radio and oh, you become a personality and all that. And it's like, no, it doesn't work that way. It just does not. This is a program that is focusing on Jude Bijou's work, and that work has to do with attitude reconstruction, attitudereconstruction.com. That is her website. As I've said before, we will be linked to. We certainly hope that you will go to her website and find out more about her and get a copy of the book that was referenced earlier, Attitude Reconstruction. It's available in paperback as well as on Kindle. And we hope that you will stay tuned to Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, your host, and we are working to try to adjust our attitudes. I mentioned at the front end of the program, Stealing Your Thunder, that words have power. And the greatest example of that when it comes to the discussion of intention is something we've talked about, politics. And that I have been accused of being naive. Come on, Richard, don't. What they're saying, it's unimportant. They're just it's just politics. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought, well, wait a minute, hold on, it can't be just politics because they're saying these words in order to convince the electorate to vote for them so they can sit in this particular seat of power to do whatever it is that they think they're going to be able to do. And so I'm going, no, this is not politics. Words have power. I had a coworker who used to go into the studio to record his news, and I could hear him from down the hall. Every time he made a mistake, it was all kinds of profane self-deprecation.
So there's a person who needs to go and do some big old crying because they don't feel good about themselves. But what they mask it with is the anger.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so stupid and oh, what an idiot and blah, 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 blah. But they just don't feel good about themselves because it's for each of us, it's really to figure out what our repetitive destructive thoughts are. Are they about ourselves? Are they about other people and things, the anger? Or are they about time? Are they about the future or the past? Am I lamenting about, oh, I've made that mistake in the past and I did that? Or what's a worry about how is this going to happen? Or, oh, this is such a calamity. It's like for each of us, it's to figure out what the destructive thoughts that we think over and over, and then look for what contradicts those thoughts that is true. So you can't go, if your destructive thought is, I'm a crappy parent, I'm just lousy. You can't combat that with, I'm the best parent in the whole world, because that's not true. But I'm doing my best as a parent. I'm doing my best as a parent. I'm doing my best as a parent. And start to find stuff that contradicts. So you can even write down those destructive thoughts that you think over and over. Pretty easy to do. We all know what kind of thoughts that we're thinking, whether it's that everybody is, lame and they should just follow art because we know, that they're that, or that that I've got to control everything. If I don't control everything, that the world's going to fall apart. It's like I need to stay in control, or or to give up my way. I have a client, lovely client, smarter than a whip, but she always with her husband, almost always with her husband, acquiesces. She says something, he says something, and then she goes, oh, okay, rather than I've got to continue to speak up sweetly, not combatively, but I have to not be passive, because that's one of those things that indicate that unexpressed sadness. I don't get that I'm powerful. and that I deserve to be on the planet. I feel little. That means I need to do some more crying. I need to cry, cry, cry. And while I'm crying, I just go, I'm just so sad. I just need to cry. Or you can go, I love myself. I'm doing so good. I'm doing the best I can while you're crying, but not like nobody loves me. Oh, I can't decide anything. That's not good crying. That's how you get depressed, is that you're thinking these bad thoughts about yourself over and over again. So it's figure out what you're saying that's not worth it, not making you feel joy, love, and peace, those emotions, but making you feel more sad, more depressed, and start to repeat those over and over. I say 100,000 times, because think about how many times we've thought the opposite. Oh, nobody likes me. Oh, I made another mistake. Oh, blah, 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 blah. Oh, I don't look nice. Oh, my hair is too long. Oh, my hair is too short. Oh, not tall enough. All of those messages that we carry around that keep us from feeling our full potential and being happy.
Well, it is. There's no question. It's a challenge to live in this world today, with the kinds of things that are being said. I and I have to catch myself too sometimes, because I try not to watch the news. Actually, I've been criticized for not keeping up on current events. And it's like, but what to what end? To what end do I need to be keeping up on current events? Because I can't control them. And so why should I, because I know these things are going on, and I know that man's inhumanity to man has been going on for eons, and unfortunately, at least for the time being, is continuing to go on. So why do I need to fill my head with it? I recognize that it's there. I'm not burying my head in the sand. I'm just saying I don't need to be bombarded by that information. But when I listen to some of the commentary on radio and television occasionally, I and the name calling, and the
Oh,
first thing that comes to my mind is, how is this helping the situation? How is your calling these other people names helping to improve things? And I know this would never happen, but I would love for some of these commentators who have been
and politicians.
and politicians as
And
well, who
politicians.
have been doing this for God knows how long, I just take 1 hour out of one day of your broadcast and don't say anything but positive things about
Oh,
that one person that you have been criticizing for years. Just 1 hour. 30 minutes. Give me 30 minutes. Okay. All right. 10 minutes. 10, just nothing positive for 10, nothing but positive for 10 minutes. I know that would never happen because it doesn't sell. And
well, and because they would go, oh, I can't do that.
yeah,
I can't do that, because that happens with clients all the time. I'll go, all right, now it's time to appreciate yourself. And they go, oh, no. And I go, yeah. And it's like, there's nothing. And then it's like, come on, there's got to be something. And
yeah.
okay, well, what'd you do? You got up and you made your bed. Well, good for you. What else did you do? And you just need a lot of coaching, because when we've got that stored up anger, it always goes to the negative. It goes to those judgments.
Mhm.
It goes to those labels. But those are really indicative of unexpressed anger. And underneath that, we know there's sadness. They don't feel good about themselves. They feel insecure, and they're freaked out. All of those emotions are underneath that negativity, those finding what's wrong and amplifying that for ratings because it's sensational or something like that. Ugh.
Mm. Jude Bijou is my guest here on the program. She has a book out and a website by the same name. AttitudeReconstruction.com is the website. Attitude Reconstruction is the title of the book in paperback and in Kindle. And we are talking about your thoughts and your words and your actions and how they all play together, basically to form the person that you are today. And if you don't like the person you are today, Guess what? You can change the person you are tomorrow, today,
You
by
have a
changing.
choice.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
have a choice, which is part of what this program is all about, giving people choices and knowledge of those choices to help make their dreams come true. And this is Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan along with Jude Bijou. And Jude, we've had you on several times on this program over the years to talk about several different subjects. I think the last time we were together, I think it was procrastination. And to that end, a lot of people will put all of this stuff off. I mean, it's kind of like you're heading towards the holidays and you know you should diet. But I tell you what, come January, I'm going to eat right. But right now, because there's so much good stuff out here, I just can't resist. I'm just going to go nuts and set the dieting concept aside. You don't have to wait until January or someday in the future. But you do, individuals, and you've obviously dealt with this in your clinical settings. Individuals, obviously, they have a hard time sometimes even starting to say anything good about themselves. This whole issue of self esteem, of self worth. I was asked, Richard, if you could change anything about me, this person was asking me, what would it be? Now, I know this person well, and I said to them, if I could change anything about you, it would be that you would have a greater self confidence, that you would believe in yourself. Where do you begin with someone who's at the bottom of that ladder, of that rope, as it were, whatever metaphor?
Well, one is that you appreciate them, and because they go, oh, they'll deflect, but also that you say, no, no, I really want to hear. There's got to be something. There's just got to be something good about what you're doing. And you really hold their feet to the fire in a loving way
Hmm.
and say, come on, just humor me. Tell me three things that you like about yourself. Three things you did well today. Or if you can't think of today, how about in the last week or the last month? But you start with just little steps. And you don't say, all right, give me 10 appreciations. That's just way too much. But you start with one. What's one thing that you like about yourself? Oh, give me another. Oh, that one's so sweet. Tell me another one. Oh, yes, that just was music to my ear. Can you tell me another one? And then pretty soon they'll start laughing. And
Mm,
then they'll go, yeah, I'm pretty cool. It's like we just need that encouragement
yeah.
that it's okay. It's not that if I say nice things about myself, I'm being conceited. It's not. It's that I'm honoring who I am. I'm a good person. I'm trying my best to, be good to my children, to be good to my pets, to be good to my spouse, to be good to my friends.
I've this thought came to me as we started talking about this particular area, a movie called City Slickers. And in it, one of the characters, Mitch, and his two buddies, they're riding and they're having this conversation. And the conversation was around, so what was your best day? And each one of them would go around and answer what their best day was. One of them, I think, was when their daughter was born. Another, I think, was when they got married, and so forth and so on. And I remember having one of those days, and I'm thinking, boy, that would be a great. So, when was your best day? And it may have been your childhood. Wherever it was. When was your best day?
That's a great question to ask people. That's really great. Are you asking me?
And I'm asking you, when was your best day?
Well, I've got to say that it was when I started meditating. When I was initiated, I started with TM, Transcendental Meditation. And when I had that first experience of meditating, I went to I dropped down into myself And it was like, I was beyond words. And it's like, that's what I was looking for. That's when I knew that I was on the right path.
How cool. How cool. Um, I can actually look at several days, but I would say that my very first best day after seeing that movie, when I was 33, and I was on a camping trip. It was actually with two other gentlemen. We were in a men's group that I had started. One of them was the patron, was the owner of a bar in Phoenix. The other one was an elderly gentleman who was a former professor. And I had helped the professor to refurbish his fiberglass boat. He had a leak in it in the bottom. So we took it to my house, had a two-car covered garage or carport, and we put it up on sawhorses and so on and so forth. And we loaded it up with all of the good things and headed up to the lake. And the other guy was going to join us. The bar owner was going to join us the next day. We get to the we get to the site and we take everything off and we're doing what we're doing and all of a sudden we're starting to do this and that and the other and dishes and what have you, and he starts telling me how to do dishes. Well, I've got siblings and we had chores when we were kids growing up. One of them, every for a week, two of us would do the dishes. We would set the table and then we'd clear the table and do the dishes. So I knew how to do dishes, and I was fed up at that point because it was like he was telling me what to do or how to do things. Anyway, so I kind of exploded a little bit and supposedly activated his PTSD because he was in the Vietnam War, And I said, I don't care. I said, I'm not sure. You're not my father or my professor. I know how to do stuff. Not and so forth. Well, he went back to do some medical exams down in the city from where we were. He was able to do that, and that morning I woke up after he had left. And I thought, well, I'll go ahead and take care of the dishes because I know how to do them for breakfast. I made myself some breakfast and so forth. And I thought, you know what? That boat is sitting over there by the lake. I'm going to put that sucker in the water. And I got in there and I rowed back and forth across that lake. Had a great time. Came back to the campsite. You know those big concrete rings they have at campsites? And then the little thing where you can start a fire? I made a whole big old fire for one hot dog. And a couple of other things. And then the other guy shows up, and our friend was still down there having his tests. And so the bartender comes up, and he comes up with this bone-in ham, big bone-in ham in a big pot, and we put it on the fire, and we get it going with the beans. He brings up beer and Jack Daniels, and so we're having a great time just sitting at the picnic table talking and enjoying ourselves and everything. And when that day was over, I could look at that day and say, first of all, because I stood up for myself to this gentleman who wasn't obnoxious or anything, it's just the way he was. And we were still friends after that. But I stood up for myself. And then I did things that I wanted to do in such a way, in spite of the fact that I had no vehicle. I was stuck. If these guys didn't show up again, I'd have to go to one of the other campers there and say, could you give me a ride home? And it was a great day that day. And then for 30 days after that, and that was on the 3rd of September, it was Labor Day that year, 1993. And for the next month, every day after that, I actually said, today was my best day. And it doesn't diminish all of the other best days I've had. And, you know,
And I would say that you felt a lot of joy.
oh, yes.
The opposite of sadness is joy. And when you took care of yourself, you spoke up, you said what you needed to say, and then you did things that gave you pleasure, that you tapped into your own needs and your own wants. Those are you honoring you, and those create the emotion of joy.
Hmm.
And so that what you did is you just inundated yourself with a big dose of joy that created a divine shift.
Yeah.
You were able to stay in that state. That's
I
lovely.
also, and I ask you this too. Do you think that another way of shifting our energy and shifting our attitudes is to delve into areas that we probably wouldn't ordinarily. And I'll just use a real quick example. And it's not that I've never done this before, but it's been a while. And I decided, I was asked by someone to go and audition for this musical group that we have here in Santa Barbara, and it's across the country actually, called Revels, Santa Barbara Revels. And they're doing this Scottish, it's actually a solstice celebration musical. And so I went and I auditioned, and I was accepted into the choir. And then they said, you ought to audition for some acting parts, and so forth. So I thought, whether I get picked or not, this was a fun day, when it was all over. And I've noticed that I even shifted from my normal, because I've been listening for the longest time to country music, because I enjoy country music. But some things in my personal life, every time I listen to one of these songs, it just keeps rehashing it. So I've switched to the classical station where there are no lyrics, just that beautiful music that kind of evokes a particular emotion or feeling. So stepping outside of your comfort zone, doing something different in your routine can have a great effect in that regard.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Outside of your own rigid thoughts about what your potential is, and just go for it. Step through the fear and do it anyway. And that's what you did. And then you saw, there I am. I'm there in my wholeness, in my fullness. Very good. Very
What
good.
what are some of the things that you have done? Certainly you talked about your first best day, but what are some of the things that you have done to step outside of yourself, step out of your comfort zone, that when you looked back going, wow, I was scared to death when I've learned how to fly a plane. Not that I was necessarily afraid. I just never thought I would ever do it in my lifetime because, well, I was born legally blind. How many legally blind pilots do you know? I don't think any. So, what are some of the things you have done to take yourself get out of your way, so to speak, and shift your emotions and your attitudes and your intention?
Well, I think one of the best ones is that I became an advocate for attitude reconstruction. Because where I was, okay, I put together this whole theory of human behavior, and now, all right, and I find, after 20 years of editing and editors, I finally got it the way I want it, and it's like, okay, and I'm done. Rather than, oh, now I have to promote it. I have to go out there and talk with people that I don't know and do things that I, accept engagements to speak places that I would prefer to be home under the covers. But really having to step out of that comfort zone because I knew that I had a higher purpose, that I had really good information that I had to express.
That's cool. I'm working on my book too. I've been working on it for 21 years.
Oh,
Not a long book. I'm not writing War and Peace, mind you, but I've procrastinated, kind of like our conversation the last time about procrastination. But I've made the commitment that I will basically have this thing ready for publication by the 22nd of December 2022. So I'm getting close to the deadline, but I've begun reading through it little by little and so forth. And I feel real good about that. Plus another project where now I'm the narrator for a gentleman's 6 mystery novels. Just some new things that are coming along. It's just incredible. So, boy, I tell you what, stepping outside, shall we say, our own personal 9 dots, or stepping outside our own personal box.
yes,
Quite honestly, I think the phrase is that 90 or 95% of what we worry about never happens.
absolutely. And it's born of fear.
Yeah.
It's because we're in fear and we're scared. I'm scared of what's going to happen. So I won't do it. Rather than, okay, I might feel fear, but I can shake it off. And let me see what's through door number 1, through door number 2, through door number 3. Because that's what they say, is that people who are really, really inventive take that fear response that they feel in their body as a good sign. Mm-hmm. It's a sign that I'm breaking through and going someplace where I haven't gone before. So they don't go, ooh, I feel scared, I better retreat.
Yeah.
They go, I'm going forward. I'm moving into new territory. And
though I'm not a big fan of this phrase, whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I would say that when we do step outside our own personal box, that to me is what truly builds our character as well as our self-esteem. Because even if they had rejected me for a singing part, or even if they reject me for an acting part, at least I put myself out there. At least I did something, you know. What is it in sports? Let's say basketball. You are guaranteed 100% not to make one single basket if you never shoot. If you never put up the ball. And that's true. You'll never make a basket if you never put it up. And you know, it's like, and yeah, it's scary sometimes. I mean, I still, in spite of the, what's that?
It's just fear. It's just an emotion, and I can handle it. It's not going to kill me. It's just an emotion. I can shake a little bit. I can give myself some thoughts like everything will be okay. Everything will be okay. Everything will be okay. Those are the kind of thoughts that pacify the fear. Everything will be okay. Everything is okay. One step at a time. You know, I can do it. One step at a time. I can handle it. You know, I'll take care of the future in the future. Some kind of thought that offsets those thoughts that we have of, oh, I can't do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Rather than, I can do that. Just give it a shot.
And you know what is so cool about doing stuff like that is, in addition to, you know, whether I, like I said, whether I get picked or not, I had a lot of fun. I met a lot of new people. It's, if I do get picked, wow, how cool. Obviously, they saw something in me, and it starts to build up your self-confidence, your self-esteem, your self-worth. And we're not talking narcissism here. I think that's maybe also part of the fear is, I don't want to become a narcissist, just like in my business. You have to have a pretty good sized ego in this business. And so I recognize that is a reality. That doesn't necessarily mean that I'm a narcissist, you know, that I'm pathological or anything, because I can sit here even with the humblest of hearts and say, I am good at what I do. Not just because other people say I'm good at what I do, but I've listened to some of the stuff I've done. And I'm in awe. I was listening to a project I finished. I'm not kidding you. I had tears. Wow. You know, it wasn't, did I do that? You know, Urkel's, did I do that? Yeah. Look what you can do. And it really makes a big difference. And I wanted to tie this into community. I wanted to tie this into building community. When you have people around you who aren't necessarily yes people, but they're not tearing down your dreams.
Yes.
Talk to us about that and how important that is.
Well, you've just nailed it. And that is, the company that we keep is so important. If we're around a lot of negativity, a lot of people, oh, that won't work, and you can't do that, that it's so easy to give up. Or to go, okay, I'm going to be the strong one, and I'm going to say, no, let's go for it. But it's hard when we're in an atmosphere where everybody is, oh, that won't work, and that can't work, and that can't work, that it's hard not to get sucked in to the energy around us. That's why we have to be really careful about who we hang with and find people who want to appreciate us and be excited about what we have to contribute.
Well, I will tell you, Jude, that it is something that I know I still struggle with, but much less than I used to. I am still a bit on the self-conscious side when I'm singing in front of people. But one of the tricks that I found that's helped me is that, all right, once you get started, it's now too late. You can't be embarrassed anymore because you've already started. So you might as well just go for it. And so in my audition, that's really the perspective I took. I mean, I spent a minute and a half just trying to, okay, I got to make sure I start the right note. And okay. And I mean, I was doing all of this stalling and finally, okay, you got it. You got to belt it. All right, boom. And now I started. Okay, there's no turning back now. And it went, and it was great.
I call that gulp and leap.
I like it. I love it. I love it.
That's just what we've got to do. We got to try something new. And that's it. You can procrastinate. Oh, I can't do that. Oh, I'm not a good writer or whatever. Or we can just say, what the heck? Going to write for 20 minutes today. And just let all of those self-sabotaging thoughts, don't pay attention to them. Go, I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. Just 20 minutes. I can do this. And then after 10 minutes, it's, oh, I'm done. I haven't got, no, I can do this. 20 minutes. And you're coaching yourself with your thoughts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because nobody else is going to do that for us unless we're a little small child and somebody is teaching us how to do the alphabet or something, something like that. But that we can be our own best cheerleader rather than our own best naysayer, because one is going to make us expand and the other is going to make us retreat. And we have it again, we have a choice.
Yeah.
And only we're responsible for ourselves. Nobody else is going to be there to make us feel happy. Those kind of happinesses come and go. It's sort of like, I got to feed myself.
Before we wrap things up, I have to go down this particular road. I know that it's got to be an important part of this process. And that is one of the things we promote on this station, on this program. People participating in the Decade of Perfect Vision, the 2020s, where we ask people to go within and listen to that still small voice. Tell me about how important that is. It's sort of a multi-layered question. How important it is, and your suggestions on how one might get started if they've never really consciously listened to and followed those promptings.
Well, I think that it's really important. For attitude reconstruction says there's 5 things that we can do to change. We can change how we handle our emotions. We can change how we think. We can change how we communicate, how we speak. We can change our actions. Or the 5th one is we can start to listen to ourselves, listen to our intuition, our inner voice. That's the anchor. That's the anchor for.
Oh dear, you've frozen.
And ask ourselves the question, what's true for me? What's true for me? And it's not, I think, I feel like no, it's what's true for me. And just by asking the question and then pausing, we know what we want for dinner. It starts with something very, very small. Or do I want to go out tonight or not? Just it's not like, oh, well, that person wants me to meet them there. It's sort of like, no, stop, pause, take a deep breath, and ask ourselves the question, and then listen, because it's stop, listen, ask the question, whatever the question is, listen, and then obey. follow through with what we hear.
Mm.
So it's not like I need to stay in tonight. I've been too busy today. Oh, but my friend really wants me to go. I'll go anyway. No, it's listen to ourselves
Yeah.
because that's our anchor. That's our North Star. Everything else is I'm just going around there chasing the tail of other people's desires.
Yeah. Attitude Reconstruction, attitudereconstruction.com is the website. My guest is Jude Bijou, and you're listening to Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, your host, and I want to thank you so much for the time that you have given us on all of these programs, this one especially. I think this one was quite interesting, and I hope inspiring for people who are listening that it doesn't take much to get started. And
I want
you just start with the little things. The little. I've often said it's the details that will make you or break you.
I have two things to say. One goes right along with that point that you're making, and that is if I go, okay, I'm going to look at my destructive thoughts and I'm going to start to say something that I appreciate about myself every day, and then you forget. Doesn't matter. When you remember, start again. It's always an opportunity to start again and go, all right, I'll do that. I want to lose 5 pounds. Oh, I forgot and I ate that chocolate cake. Start the next day. Start so we can always start again with our good intentions about what we know in our heart is what will really take us toward joy, love, and peace. So that's one thing. The other is that I am teaching a free how to communicate class, a Saturday class through Adult Ed coming up on the 22nd of October. And it's one of those things we just weren't taught how to communicate.
Hmm.
And I think we've talked about communication, that there's simple rules, but you can see that everybody has the same problems in their communication. And we weren't taught. So come join me on the 22nd of October. Go to the Adult Ed, Extended Education, Extended Learning, and maybe I'll see you on that Saturday.
I hope so. Hope so. Well, once again, Jude, I want to thank you so much. I do want to ask you those three questions that I ask all of my guests at the end of the program. Your answers may change from program to program, which is fine. They may be the same. But before I ask you those questions, I want to address you, the listener and the viewer, and thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World, as we're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. And as I've said before, we're here Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m. Well, that's our special edition of Tell Me Your Story. We stream those at that time. We stream at those times, and our podcasts are on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, Blueberry, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and many other locations. And you can watch these interviews on the YouTube channel, Richard Dugan, Tell Me Your Story. We certainly hope that you'll subscribe so that you'll be notified when new interviews are posted. We also ask that if you can do so, support us financially. We have a PayPal account. It's there for your security as well as ours. And we also ask you, as I've already stated, to spend some time going within during the decade of perfect vision, the 2020s, where you listen to that still small voice and follow the promptings. You can start small. Again, it's the details that'll make you. And every time you do it, you become a little bit more confident and a little bit more trusting. I know it took me a long time, but I tell you now it's second nature just to be guided. So we hope that you will do that. With all of that being said, we now move to the final three questions of our program for our guest. And the first of those three is, who is Jude Bijou?
Ooh, someone who strives for joy, love, and peace.
What is it that you hope to or want to accomplish with the work that you are doing now?
I want small children to learn these simple principles so that they are going to feel their full potential as they grow up.
And finally, what is your life's purpose?
joy, love, and peace, and to die with a smile on my face.
Couldn't agree with you more on that one. And with that, I thank you again for joining us, and I thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story. New paradigms for a new world. We're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. And until our next broadcast, podcast, videocast, love to Lal, and Jeanette, I am listening.